Hello, and welcome to the Mothers of All Crime. This is a podcast where we deep dive into mothers involved in infamous crimes and scandals. I'm Monica, and this is Krystal.
Welcome back to the Mothers of All Crime. Today we're picking up with part 3 of Lori Vallow. How are we doing, Krystal?
Good. How are you? I'm excited for our last little push for Lori.
I know, me too. Lori.
I know. So this one, we've mainly kind of focused around the documentary and what's been presented for the last two episodes. And this one, we're going to focus more on the court cases. So the documentary on the last part of it did mention a little bit of her case in relation to the murders, but we're also going to pull in some other sources just so you can get a better picture. But then also the more recent trials that happened and kind of touch on those as well.
Yeah, and we definitely also want to talk about just Lori in general, her unhinged behavior, interviews she's done recently. There's stuff. There's stuff to chat about with Lori.
Yeah. So why don't we start with Idaho, kind of the OG cases, if you will.
Sure.
So
in 2023 is when she. Yes. Very weird.
And I think we talked a little bit about this part offline. It really is a hard one to look at because depending on what you read really changes what the information is. So there's a lot of conflicting information on the original charges, indictments versus grand jury versus what they thought she was guilty of versus what they charged her with. So it was kind of a frustrating one, at least for me, where historically we have a lot of like, this is the charge, this is what they did, blah, blah, blah. Here, you and I went back and forth a little bit of like, hold on, what about this? Did you have this? I found this.
Yeah. I feel like that happens a lot with when stories are really big on social media and there's multiple documentaries and it's on Reddit and TikTok and there's just so many sources all clamoring to report very similar information and sometimes it gets kind of confusing. I think that's mostly what it is. But there's also so many charges that sometimes it's a bit confusing, and this is dragged out over multiple years at this point and it's still ongoing. So it's not simple. It's not like she's been charged with murder and this is the case and this is the trial and the victims get justice. It's a ongoing, never ending, it seems, thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And multi-layered and a lot of witnesses came into them. I noted down particularly from different sources that some of these witnesses they remembered very interesting aspects and things that I probably wouldn't have thought of. However, I mean, I guess in the time when you're sitting with a child sleeping in your arms or talking to a teenager, like those aren't things that you would necessarily think to remember until something tragic happens, very similar to this case. So the minute details that a lot of the witnesses brought up during the first trial, I really was quite impressed considering the amount of time that had passed.
That's true. I mean, I guess those memories just become more significant in light of what's happened, and it's very impactful to the people that are involved.
Yeah. So the original trial, she ended up being charged, and correct me if I'm wrong. We had first degree murder, we had conspiracy to commit murder, and grand theft. The first degree murder, there was two charges of that, both for Tylee and JJ, conspiracy to murder, same thing for her children.
Exactly. And the grand theft is related to her stealing her kids' money, basically, because she was collecting their Social Security benefits after they were deceased, which is not legal. And it amounted to quite a bit of money. So that's why it was not just theft, it was grand theft. And initially, Lori was declared mentally unfit, which I think is kind of ironic after Charles trying to get her committed and trying to get her assessed and trying to tell people that she was mentally unfit and she was delusional and she was deranged
Yes.
for after her getting charged. All of a sudden, now she's unfit and unwell.
I
It's
know.
like,
Justice for Charles.
she can really put on a show either way. Yeah, exactly. Poor Charles, honestly.
Yeah, because
That's what
I
I keep
think
coming back to.
it went up to the Social Security was like over $20,000 at one point. I don't know what the final number was, but either way, an excessive amount of money. And I think that's a really great point, right? And you got to wonder because she, at least for me, there's no question that she's very smart. You got to wonder if she thought that there was a level of technique to being found incompetent because
Mm-hmm.
she still had that idea in her head that like the world's going to end. So if your world's going to end and you are able to not be held accountable for your actions because again, she's the divine queen, she's above us and above our laws. You got to wonder if there was some kind of
Right.
technique there that backfired.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think a lot of what we see with Lori and with Chad is they were just trying to ride it out initially. But at the time of her competency, like the end of the world stuff had already come and gone. Um, but I think that they were always working a new angle, and still to this day, they think they can get away with all of this.
Yeah, which just makes me ick. But so during that trial, some of it, because again, it happened over a very long period of time, it kept getting pushed off. Um, Melanie's boyfriend, if we remember who Melanie, the one where they told the police that JJ was with Melanie when he wasn't. He had a statement during one of the trials recollecting September 2019, and he remembers seeing JJ with Alex, Lori's brother, and him just being really peaceful. But now, understanding what happens, he was wearing the same pajamas, he wasn't really moving. It's being speculated or implied that he may have been dead in that moment, which I can't imagine if like you had that realization of I thought he was sleeping, he seemed peaceful, like it wasn't, I didn't think anything of it, and then turns out he had just recently been murdered is a that would keep me up at night for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But
It's just horrible to think about. I mean, they were so brazen with
yeah.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
And to just have essentially a corpse of a child just floating around,
Yeah, and
passing it off like he's asleep.
not thinking anything of it. Like most people, not that I'm encouraging murder, but like most people, if you murder someone, you like hide the body. You don't bring it out when company comes over. Like it's just a very, again, odd
That's true.
thing to do when
Yeah.
the situation was happening. But I also think it's, speaking of Melanie and her boyfriend, they still are doing that podcast that we had talked about back on episode 1, I think, for this little mini series.
Wow.
They're alive, they're going, which I think is an interesting little point. Kind of connects to like things like Nexium, where just because your leader's not there doesn't mean you can't keep pushing on and following what you believe. So there's that.
Are they doing they're they're doing the podcast that she had with Lori
Mm-hmm.
still.
Yeah, it goes under a different name, but Melanie's still podcasting.
Well, you got to rebrand at that point. You
Yeah,
know,
right.
when you go on a killing spree, I'm gonna rename the podcast,
That feels
and
fair.
it's gonna be tough. Yeah.
I'll try to give you some good content though.
Yeah, that's a whole new series, honestly. That's perfect. And I'll be like, I can't believe I didn't even see it coming. Not at all. Not even a little bit. She tricked me.
Yeah. Well, I don't think these two tricked much of anybody once they start going. So they did at the beginning. So I'll give them
Yeah,
that.
definitely. Mm-hmm.
So
It's true.
obviously, eventually, the case does go on. She was found competent to stand. Because for anybody who doesn't know, if you're not competent to stand trial, you just keep getting pushed off. It's not something that they're like can do
Mm-hmm.
without you. uh,
Right.
and it what I thought was interesting that a lot of people might not know because a friend of mine didn't know, so I thought I should mention when you are determined to be mentally incompetent, it's not like you get to go home and wait it out. You're not staying in a nice
Right.
hospital getting reevaluated. You're put into a criminally insane location. Like you're going to jail. You're not going to a
Right.
hospital like you and I would go to get like treatment. And the same thing is if you're found guilty by reason of insanity. It's not like you get to go to a nice hospital and get like things like that. You're going to jail just specialized for people with that deficiency. And I didn't realize people didn't necessarily have that connection of these are not hospitals what you and I might think of. They are hospitals that are designed to be jails, which is a very different type of quote hospital.
Definitely. I do think that's a common misconception that, you know, pleading insanity is a get out of jail free card, or if you're not competent to stand trial, then you get to just push it off and you're not dealing with any consequences. If you are out on bail or bond, I suppose that's true, and you do get to just wait at home, but there's a lot of restrictions still. But in someone like Lori's case, she was in prison the whole time. She did not she was not in a she was not home. She was not in any kind of therapeutic environment. She was in prison awaiting the day she could be competent so that she would be tried. It's not like there's any
Yeah,
other kind of
which
resolution that could happen. When you get better, you just get to go to court.
right. So I just wanted to bring that out because I didn't. For me, it's kind of second nature, but I also sometimes forget that that's not common knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Miss Lori. She did finally get deemed competent. So, good for her. Either she stopped the act or they decided to just let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And she was found guilty, which I was very pleased with.
Very pleased. I think she was probably unbearable to be working with, to be in the courtroom with, to witness. All of the videos I've seen of the trial, she looks terrible and she sounds crazy, but none of that is very surprising. I am glad that she got guilty on all of the charges, which is first degree murder of Tylee and JJ, conspiracy to kill Tammy, and the grand theft, which sounds like a lot, but there's still more charges. She
Yeah.
got her sentencing for those.
Yeah. So she was, to break it down a little, she was found incompetent in 2018. Excuse me, 2019. She was found competent in 2020. And then she was convicted in 23, correct? For this
Yes.
one? Yeah. So
For
again,
these,
very
yeah.
long trial. And for what I was interesting for her, she waived her prelim trial, which originally was the spark that brought up the competency thing. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, she was unbearable. I normally try to watch the courts that we talk about. I just can't stand her sometimes in court. And I feel this way about all of her trials. It gets worse as we keep going for me because by the end,
Yeah.
spoiler, she's representing herself, which I I tried. I did not successfully get through the whole thing. I had clips here and there because it was entertaining, but anything long I couldn't get through. I don't know about you, but
Unwatchable.
yeah. But I will say of
She
what I
is.
did see, she stuck to the
Mhm.
guns of the better than, the superiority, the Bible quotes. She really did maintain that through all of the trials. Um, and for the original ones, the death of her children, the murder of her children, she made statements of, I've done everything to protect them. I don't know. You don't know. You don't know what it's like. You'll never understand. One day you will. Like, I'm sorry. I'm never going to
Yeah.
understand why you killed your children. Like, there's no circumstance that ever will make sense. You didn't protect them. You killed them. You're the reason they're not here. Like,
Yeah. Why you killed them like a month apart from each other and then concealed it for almost a year while you essentially fucked off and went to Hawaii to get remarried
right.
and do all of these insane things. I mean, there's just a trail of dead bodies in her wake. But she really thinks that she's justified in all of this. Which brings me back to my number one question with this case is who is the mastermind and who actually believes this stuff?
I
Because
know.
sometimes I really think that Lori has fully bought in, and other times I think it's all an act, and it's just it's too much now to go back and admit that all of this was absolutely ridiculous the whole time. Like she just can't live with herself then. And but is that a true I don't know, I go back and forth because it's to me she does have a little bit of diminished capacity if she truly believes these things, but I just don't know if she actually does.
I, I mean, we've talked about that, and I still think that she, for the most part, does. Uh, I wish I didn't. I don't know why I wish she was more to blame, but I do really. I think she executed a lot of it. I think she thought
Mhm.
things through, but I do, for some reason, just listening to her, I do believe that she thinks she did it for the right reasons. Like, I know that sounds weird, but I think there is a level
No,
of
I
psychosis there that is real. I think she absolutely, I agree that she manipulates and she is capable of making you believe what she wants. But I do think there's a level there that she bought in to what he was selling.
I guess if you really want to believe something, like for her, if she really wants to believe it, and at this point, there's basically no other option because even if she says it was all made up and crazy and I just wanted to kill them, like her situation's not going to change either way. And so maybe just for prison cred, maybe just for her to be able to look at herself in the mirror, to continue to participate in her religious stuff
Yeah.
because you still I mean she can still practice her religion in prison, but if she denounces all of the stuff that she's done then it kind of also is denouncing her religion. I don't know if she could just go back to being a regular Mormon after all of this either. Probably not.
You know, that is a good question. And that's not one we've talked about because we have a lot of Mormon offshoot conversations, and
Mhm.
you normally hear about them going from modern day Mormonism or LDS to this crazy thing, or they just started off in the extreme and then might downgrade to modern LDS. So like, it's an interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but I only really ever heard that one with like FLDS or things like that are just they still believe, but they're stepping away from like the principle rather than their religion.
Right.
I feel like with Lori, they kind of made their own religion just off the back of, yeah, right, because they had the Church of the Firstborn, so really they became a whole new religion.
Yeah, they did, but they heavily, I mean, obviously, like, all the cults are just offshoots of the main religions, pretty much.
Just copy,
But
paste, collect.
or they at least or they at least borrow things. And Chad's version of things relied heavily on the Book of Mormon and the Bible. And I think that they still considered themselves to be Mormon, but that's a bigger umbrella than the LDS. For Lori, though, who grew up in the Latter-day Saints, grew up as a regular Mormon, maybe that would be something comfortable for her to go back to.
Maybe.
If I mean, right now the community in prison is the community she has access to, and there may be a group of Mormons. I mean, currently she's jumping ahead a bit, but she's in Arizona, which I'm not sure what the prison population splits into religious wise, but Arizona itself has Mormons. So she may have a community there willing to accept her, obviously way bigger than Chad's church. If she wanted
all
to
7 of them or however
go
many
back.
there was.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's just that one podcast.
Yeah,
Most people have completely abandoned them.
I
Even
will
their biggest
say-
offenders
Oh yeah, everyone just
were coming
kind
out.
of flew away.
Mhm.
It would be interesting. I think because they're in Arizona, if they were in Utah, I'd probably think there was a more Mormon like influence in prison, because Catholicism is a big one, Muslim is a big one, and then like I've heard Mormonism is becoming more popular in going into prisons and like giving scripture lessons and things like that. So it could have had an increase because, again, prisons want to increase programming in relation to religion because it's an easy one. It doesn't take a lot of money to run. Most of the time, they're volunteers. But also, there's the other side of it as a lot of like Catholicism is based on a lot of programming. So, like AA, for example, there's some people that will do certain religions because of the like food variety that they get. Like if you are a certain religion, you can't eat certain things. Those meals are separate and sometimes better depending on your prison. So I think there's a lot of aspects into faith-based initiatives within them. But if they were in Utah, I would say she'd probably go back. But I don't know for Arizona.
Yeah, I really don't know either.
Well, either way, she's going to have all the time to figure it out because she is not leaving.
True.
So with that one, I think we mentioned was found guilty on everything and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. So it doesn't really matter because she's staying there. So maybe she can make her own call in prison. I love that for her.
She may, but she'll probably honestly latch on to a more charismatic leader. I don't know that she's going to have the creativity.
Yeah, that's true. She definitely wasn't the one designing it. She was just executing it. But after she got convicted of all her murders, including her children, Chad was also having a court case going on at the same time for the murder of the 2 children and his wife. But I think we should table that and just finish Lori first. But mostly because Chad's took forever. And in the interim, Lori had another case while his was still going.
Yeah. For Charles
Yes.
in her extradition to Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For sure. She also got charged in the attempted murder of Brandon, her niece's husband. And that one is kind of, I feel like, a little bit forgotten in this situation
Yeah.
because he didn't actually die. But I did see something that she's appealing the decision in that case because she apparently had a cold while the trial was going on and she was still forced to appear. And so that's apparently the grounds for her appeal.
I don't,
Which
which I don't even understand the effort. Like, you're never getting out. Like, why does it matter?
she just will tie up the courts forever.
She wants the attention, I swear. She just wants to be involved. She wants to have control, and she wants people to believe that she's doing this right thing when she's clearly not. My opinion.
Yeah. It's wild to me that she's still so concerned about her image.
Mm-hmm. But so as her trials continued, because off she goes, she decides to represent herself. And this is where she lost me because, first of all, every person we've ever talked about who represents themselves, you did a terrible job. And there's a reason that we have the way the system is set up because there's no way that you can understand all of the rules and all that you have to do, the procedures. With there's a reason law school is 4 years. Like, there's a reason we have this. And there's a reason that people push back in the system of like, are you sure you want to do that? We're going to appoint someone to you anyway. You can represent yourself, but like Bob's still going to sit next to you and answer questions and do things for you because you're not going to know how. Like,
Yeah, I mean, lawyers don't even represent themselves usually. Like, if a
because it's
lawyer gets
stupid.
charged with murder, they don't represent themselves. Yeah, because you need other people working on this, and you're also extremely biased, and you can't possibly be objective or
Mhm.
advocate for yourself because you're too wrapped up in it.
Yeah. So that was a, oh God. And then again, she went off with the Bible verses, and the judge constantly
Mhm.
had to be redirecting her of like, you can't preach when you're in your opening statement. Her opening statement for the most recent trial was, I think, in June of 2025. And she just kept going on and on about Bible verses. And the judge kept having to be like, listen, I need you to not. Like, because they're
Yeah.
unrelevant at that point. It doesn't even matter what you're saying. You can't use church and state as another thing. You can't use the Bible as your defense. It's not a defense. It's the same thing of, well, I didn't know it was wrong. It doesn't matter. If you didn't, just because you're ignorant of the law doesn't mean you can't be charged for it. That's not how it works.
That's true. Absolutely true. I mean, she just demonstrated a level of delusion, and from her opening statement to her closing statement, nothing made sense. And she basically, her defense for the Charles situation is that she still claims that he was killed in self defense
Mm-hmm.
and that he had attacked Alex and that this was a family tragedy and it was a horrible situation, but it was not a murder and it was not a crime. And also that Alex is dead. And even if there was a crime, that's who would be charged with it.
Mm-hmm.
But Lori is the common thread in every situation here.
Yeah. I will say, I'm going to bring up my two favorite parts of that trial.
Please do.
The first one was when, so obviously they were no longer together. Charles had been seeing other people. The woman that Charles had gone on a date with right before he was murdered would testify during the trial. And Lori was questioning her, and basically kept insinuating and sometimes even flat out saying, like, so on your date, all you guys talked about me. Oh, you talked about this. And the woman at first was very much like, well, yeah, he's divorced from you. So you did come up. So we covered that topic. Yeah, because that is something important to talk about. And then Lori kept being very self obsessed and very, it kind of showed that part of her that we don't see quite as much, where she is a little bit full of herself. She does think everybody thinks she's amazing. And at one point, this woman on the stand just kind of got tired of it. She's like, please, she's like, don't flatter yourself. We didn't talk about you the whole time. Which I was kind of proud of her. I'm like, that was a good answer.
I love that, and I also believe it because I feel like Charles knew she was nuts, wanted
Mm-hmm.
to get away from her, and was just
Moving
trying to
on.
find an exit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he probably complained about her, but
Mm-hmm.
other than that,
The one time when
not
you
too much
say
to
you have a
say.
crazy ex, when you actually do.
I know, because I am one of those people when someone says, that, "Oh, I have a crazy ex," like, especially a man saying that about an ex-girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
ex-wife. I'm always like, "Okay,
Like, what'd you do to
sure,"
make her
like
crazy?
exactly. Oh, it's like, oh, it's interesting how all of your exes are so crazy, and you have no responsibility, and you take no accountability. But I think in this case, Charles
Yeah.
really was a decent guy. That
Yeah. And I feel really bad.
everything really shifted under his feet in a pretty terrible way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I do feel really bad for him. I feel bad for everybody, but Charles, I think maybe I feel the worst for because he knew
Right. And he did everything
that
in
this
his
was
power and no one listened.
yeah,
Yeah. I agree.
and the people who did listen were not able to help him because even like Lori, one her less crazy brother was trying to help and was trying to get involved and trying to stage an intervention, and
Mm-hmm. Adam.
Charles is dead before that could happen. So, the second he starts getting supporters and people validating him and believing him and recognize there's a problem, he's taken out.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Speaking of Adam, he is the second favorite part of that trial for me because, and again,
Yeah.
I didn't watch his whole testimony, but there was one point when they talked about some kind of dinner that everyone was having. And Lori got so fixated on the fact that she apparently made these green chili chicken enchiladas. Did you see this clip?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did.
And she just kept going in on it. And he's sitting there. He's like, I don't know what you made. He's like, that was years ago. Like, she's like, well, I make it for every single holiday. What do you mean you didn't know that I made green chili chicken enchiladas? And he just kept looking at her, be like, I don't understand the point of this. Like, she was so
Yeah, it's
fixated.
like, is that a significant detail
Right. Like,
at
you were
this
talking
point?
about planning a murder of someone you apparently used to love, and you're fixated on the fact that you made green chili chicken enchiladas the day before you murdered someone. Was it like, like what? The things that she
Well,
focused on are insane.
she's like, come on, admit it. Those enchiladas, they were bomb. And it's like, Lori, that's not important right now.
And
You
the
make great
whole
enchiladas, okay?
right, like congratulations. Make them for people in prison now. There you go. They can sit there and tell you how great they are.
Yeah. It's pretty much the only option is to make them in prison.
Oh god. And it was just I don't know why. I just kept going back to that because it was the whole trial was just so ridiculous. And but every time she got to a point where she didn't know something, it was blamed on someone else. So it was, well, I'm in prison. I need an extension for this. And the judge would be like, well, you have people on the outside who can do that for you that you're not allowing to do it. So no. Um,
Right.
or she would be like, nope, I'm sick. I can't do it. And would have the something be delayed. Or she would start like fake vomiting during proceedings. Like it was every time again there was some kind of challenge to her, that's when the theatrics would seem to come out.
Oh yeah, definitely. Cuz she can act. A little bit, anyway. She
Yeah.
doesn't know how to mimic normal behavior, but she can put on a show.
Yeah. But, God,
Yeah.
I couldn't get through
I
it.
mean,
I
she
tried
had
for you
tons of
guys. I did.
She had tons of problems with her trial, though, afterwards, too. She did get convicted. She gets convicted of everything because she's a idiot and a monster and she's guilty. But she has also appealed this conviction as well as her other convictions. And this one, she says that jurors had been aware of her prior murder convictions because it was like such a famous case, which may be true, but good luck finding a jury that has no idea about that.
Yeah, they're just living under a
And
rock.
yeah, like you can't sequester people from 2 years ago or something. You know what I mean? Like you can't go back in time and uncontaminate a jury when this is a
Right.
huge case. And this is also a separate situation from the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like because you got convicted of killing the kids, that doesn't necessarily mean you murdered Charles, but there's tons of evidence that you murdered Charles.
Right.
So they
Not
don't
that
they don't
helps
need
you,
that.
but
No. But apparently there'd been, prosecutorial misconduct, discovery violations, and the judge was not impartial. And then, like you were saying before, her big appeal was that her rights had been violated under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. All of these appeals were denied. But
yeah.
she did really resent the fact that she wasn't able to just use the Bible as her primary source.
Yeah, because again, in each case, it was you can't use that. That's inappropriate. I need you to give a different statement. And I'm glad that they were so firm on that because it is easy to slip things in here and there. But I think also because it was so in your face and like such a base of what she was going to say, there was no way around doing it.
Yeah. No, definitely.
I will say though, at her sentencing, and I can't remember which sentencing it was, unfortunately, the judge did even comment on her hyper religiosity like comments. And it was an interesting thing that even after it was continuously told, no, we're not going to like talk about that he still was like, it still slipped in. And the fact that he felt the need to comment on that was interesting.
Yeah, I do think that's interesting. Is there any other viral moments that you want to talk about from her trials?
Not for me. Do you have any? The chicken enchiladas, I'm telling you. If you haven't watched it, people listening.
I have seen that though.
Anyone who hasn't seen it needs to go watch it because it is a little comic. It shouldn't be funny, but it is to me.
No,
so
but it is funny. I think if you type that into TikTok, you'll get it pretty quick. Yes. And I think it's worth watching.
Yes. Do you have any favorites?
I don't think I have any more to talk about with Lori. I mean, except for the Keith Morrison interview where she the entire time is so in 2025, very recently, Lori was interviewed for a 2020 special, and it's one of the first media appearances, public appearances. I think it's the first time she's agreed to an interview. The entire time she's just like, well, I don't know what you think, Keith, but this is how it went, Keith. And I don't know about that, Keith. Like, it's just every single sentence she said ends with a very nasty Keith. And yeah, I did really enjoy that.
Yeah. No, it was again, very subtly aggressive.
She's very aggressive. I mean, she wanted to be in control of that interview. And Keith's a pro and he wasn't letting that happen. But she really thought that she'd be able to just charm her way and control the narrative and get him on her side. And it was very frustrating to her that that's not what was happening. It kind of reminds me of like Diane Downs, of Mary Kay Letourneau, like of a completely delusional is not the right word.
I was going to go with Mary Kay. Yeah. I think delusional is not the right word, but it's not not the right word.
Is it like just delusions of grandeur? Like they just think they're so incredible and beyond reproach. I mean, all of these people went to prison for their crimes also. So I mean, it's not a good strategy, apparently. It doesn't really work. But they were very confident. Or at least they appeared to be confident. I still don't know if that's real, or if that's an insecurity thing, or that's a mental illness thing. Like I don't know, but I feel like there's a similar thread between those people, and it's probably narcissism as well, where it's just they cannot see how they are being perceived because in their own minds they're so beyond. So to me, they all have similar vibes of being extremely infuriating and very dangerous also.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so now we have Mr. Chad.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I do have a couple things I want to talk about with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you want to, do we want to talk in order of what happened or what his defense is?
Take it away.
I do think his defense
start.
is really well. I was just going to say that so he's been charged, they're trying to get the death penalty for Chad, and his motions for trying to remove the death penalty from his murder trials have been hilarious to me. And they're basically all that Chad was manipulated sexually and emotionally by Lori, and that's why he's not really culpable for his actions, which I don't know if I've ever heard that as a defense, but that's legitimately
from
why
a
he thinks that
man.
he's Yeah, I don't think it usually works for women either, though. Like, I mean, maybe women do use it, but I don't think it usually works, and I don't think it's going to work in this case either. But basically, I mean, I don't know if I agree with Lori not getting the death penalty though.
So I do want to clarify that the jury did find Chad guilty and did give him the death penalty. He has just been trying to get it removed ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh yeah,
so I do agree with you. And I think the big reason that they didn't go on the death penalty with Lori is because there was all the competency issues. And if she never had those competency issues, I don't think they would have hesitated. I think they would have charged the same. But that's the big difference between the two. They're both fully involved and there's no question of guilt. But the only difference that I could find like really big is Chad's competency was never questioned. And that's why they went full in. Because if you think about it, if you have someone who wasn't competent and then competent and then not competent and then competent, and then you put them to death, that is the opening for a lot of potential issues. Regardless if she did or not, there's going to be people that are against that because it's inhumane to put someone who is not competent to death.
I do get that. But I would say the same argument that made Lori questionably competent also makes Chad questionably competent. Does he have these religious delusions? Does he have this kind of psychosis? Is this a mob mentality, a twisted way of thinking? Like, it's the same belief system.
Right, but when you listen to them talk, he's not throwing Bible verses out left and right. It's very factual. It's very
not
responsive.
in court.
Right, but that's the thing is like if you're trying to present that you are incompetent or have some kind of question, you would present that in court. And his attorney would probably be like, listen, I need you to like spew something right now.
And that makes me go back to maybe Lori's the mastermind and maybe Chad's right. Maybe he was emotionally and sexually controlled by this person, and maybe he's just a wacko, a religious nutjob. And this woman wanted to get rid of her husband. She wanted to get rid of her kids. and she wanted what she wanted, and she used Chad's ego and his mental illnesses to take over, and now she's not going to get put to death and he is.
Yeah, see, and that's funny because I do the opposite. For me, it just reinforces that Chad was in control because he consistently is very matter of fact, very this is the way, this is it. Like, here's the plan, here's what we're going to do. When he started his convictions, it was like, all right, got to get my attorneys, got to get this. Very direct in all his answers when he listens things. And I think that if he truly believed what he was preaching, he would have brought it up more during his trial. Because looking at the way that there testifies, because it reminds me of like Keith Raniere. I don't think Keith Raniere, who's NXIVM, believed anything that he was talking about. He just wanted the control, the power, the sex. And most of his stuff, he never talked about his group, his religion, whatever the case is. Neither did Chad, but all his followers, when they went up, and that's what they talked about. Very similar to Lori.
I mean, it is different when you're the leader of your cult versus someone else is a member of your cult, and like how that's going to be perceived in court and down the line. But I'm talking about more at the time of the crimes, what they believed and who was psychotic and who had diminished capacity at the time of the crimes, not in the trial. I think by the time of the trial, Chad at least was aware that he was, like, he knew by that point. And I think it had kind of snapped for him. Whereas Lori either is putting on a really good show because she doesn't want the death penalty, or she truly believes it. And I go back and forth on this too. This is like my sticking point with this case is, do they actually believe these things? Because it does make me view it differently. Not like it's justified, not like it's okay, not like they shouldn't be in prison for the rest of their lives. Because I would be thrilled for them both to get the death penalty today. But were they, their mindset at the time of the crimes is what I'd really like to know, which is hard to prove, and that's the whole thing.
Right. I think the only
we can really only judge them by now.
Right. I think the only thing that could maybe get me on camp, he was a little crazy, and believed it, was the fact that he already was writing books and talking about this kind of stuff prior to meeting Lori. It's not like he met Lori and then all of a sudden had these ideas. He already had this established light and dark system. He already had this established past lives, friends with Jesus, establishment. So that's the only thing for me that could maybe sway me going that he believed it, I think, originally. But I think once he met Lori and saw how passionate she could become about it is when it started going off the rails. But I don't know. I see your point. I just can't get on board with him being and I can't get on board with his defense, first of all. Like, part of me.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
When I was reading it, I honestly, my first instinct was, oh, so your defense is what you did to Lori. Was my first instinct response.
But do you think that perhaps you, I, the courts, everybody has this bias just because of their sexes and because of the patriarchal religion? Or do you think that
I see that for sure.
If you take that away,
I think that's a historical thing, but also there are cases where, because like you're right, historically women are perceived as being weaker. Women in the court system get the benefit of the doubt of, oh, she wouldn't do that, she's a woman. And I do think currently we still have that idea that like men can't get like sexually abused by women, that men can't be physically abused or controlled. I do think that's still there. There's actually a lot of documentation that that's still there. But in this circumstance, I don't think so. But it is possible. But again, I think where I come from is just we constantly hearing about how Lori was so infatuated with Chad. We don't hear a ton of Chad's infatuation with, like, we heard that, like, he loved her, or quote air quotes, like he wanted to be with her, but there was, at least my perspective, there seemed to be more of an obsession from Lori, and Chad was more of, I like this coming with what comes with your obsession. You know what I mean?
That could be, but I think that also may relate back to their roles in their religion, and the fact that it's all patriarchal is, it's really hard to get away from, because it's not just like our perception or our opinion, it's also just a fact that in these religions the men are in charge.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so Lori doesn't actually get to call the shots, and she is just supposed to be his adoring fan because he's famous and he has a direct line to God and he's a prophet and this and that. And we see that time and time again in these fundamental religions, made up, not made up, whatever. And I think that because of that inherent power dynamic, the way it's just set up, we do perceive them differently.
Yeah. I
But I
do
don't know if that's
also
fair.
want to point out that we aren't giving credit to his amazing defense team, because let's also be real here. He's not the one thinking that. He's not the one coming up with this idea. His defense
Well,
team is.
sure.
Like, his defense team is
Well,
taking
and
everything,
in chats,
what he's telling them, right? And then, like,
yeah,
okay, how can we take
sure,
this information and what defense can we get? So I
truly,
I wish we could
yeah.
be a fly on the wall. Because if this is the defense that they came up with and this is the best way to go, you got to wonder, what are all the options of what he told them? Like, what were the avenues that they tried? We're like, nope, that won't work. Like,
Yeah. Well, the zombie thing didn't pan out, so they had to move on from that pretty quickly.
right.
I feel like there's no other viable defense though. It's basically just it had, because if there's no if about it. I mean, the kids are dead, you lied about it, they're in your yard. There's all of this evidence. It there's really there's no other defense. You can't say he wasn't involved. He was involved. He was even there and trying to flee the scene when the bodies were found. He's on the phone with Lori being like, "Oh, well, they haven't found anything yet." There's no way around it. So
Right.
I think that they have to, instead of denying it, they have to provide an explanation.
Oh,
And the only thing
absolutely.
they could do is try to get the charges reduced at this point, or the sentencing reduced or changed. So they're trying to go for some form of diminished capacity and put the blame on Lori. And Lori's defense, when she had one, was trying to put the blame on Chad, but Lori is still not admitting to doing anything wrong. And she doesn't admit to killing the kids, whereas Chad is no longer denying
Right.
that.
Right.
So that's also a difference, which also makes me want Lori to have the death penalty as well. I just think that would be more fair. Maybe she'll still get it. I don't know. Still more
Listen, if she
charges,
keeps
but
up with the ridiculous behavior, she might.
and I don't like to defend Chad, and I do feel like I'm doing that too much. But at least he's not trying to defend himself in court, because that is never
But
a good
again,
idea.
there's the intellectual side of it, is like he kind of realized he can't. Or he's listening to his attorney's advice, which is another reason why everyone should have an
Yeah.
attorney.
Yeah, so you can get the death penalty, basically, is what happened here. If he just was a little bit nuttier, maybe he wouldn't be actually getting put to death. I mean, he'd still be doing life in prison, though.
Yeah, exactly.
And Lori's got consecutive life sentences. Like, she's never getting out.
Right.
So I don't know what's better. Honestly, I think I'd rather probably have the death penalty myself of those two options. But still not great. The options aren't good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there's really only one other thing I wanted to talk about with Chad. Do you have anything? I just have one more thing about the
Um,
kids.
I think my only thing for him, and this is just from like an academic standpoint, because if I was in the situation on death row, I would never think this way. I'm going to preface that. But from an outside and academic standpoint, knowing how death row, the speed of death row, I don't think I'd even bother fighting it. If you get it, the chance of you actually being executed is so slim. Like in
Yeah.
Idaho, there are 9 people currently sentenced to death row in Idaho. However, 1 in 6 of people who have ever been sentenced to death in Idaho actually are put to death. And the last person who was executed by lethal injection was in 2012. So, and the one before that was 94. Excuse me, 2011. Then there was 94, and then there was 76. So the chance of it actually happening, you're more likely to die of old age. Like, just gonna preface that. But again, if I was on death row, I would not be
Yeah.
thinking that. I would want to get off death row. But just a little fun fact.
Sure.
The chance of that happening is next to 0.
I think also perhaps Chad thinks that he would have more freedom in prison off of death row if he was in a general population
That is
setting.
yeah, your
He might think
lifestyle
that.
is much better when you're not on death row. That is absolutely true.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like maybe that's partially the reason, but I appreciate the timeline of the executions in Idaho because it does really matter what state you're sentenced to death in. Because in Texas
Right.
or Florida, like it is different. You're more likely to get executed in a place that has a high execution rate. But Idaho clearly is not in a rush to execute people.
No.
And he is also an older man. He may not live for 30 more years while it waits out. But I think he wants to maybe tie it up with appeals also, just to even drag it out longer. And that is
Yeah.
partially a reason that people don't get executed quickly, is because when you get a death sentence as opposed to pleading guilty, obviously, you can keep appealing. And people do that all the time because what else do you have to do? Nothing.
Exactly.
So it's
So
pretty
what
much
are
use all your
your
time doing that.
what's your last final thought for him?
Oh, so the last thing I want to talk about with Chad is that 2 of his children testified on his behalf in court. And I thought that that was really interesting and deeply sad. But they really came to his defense and implied. So it's 2 of his kids. He had 5. Emma and Garth testified that their mother was getting really tired very easily, that she had all of these health problems, that her death was just natural causes. I mean, they said that. And then they also said that Tammy was a full believer in Chad's religion. Well, I don't want to phrase it like that. That Tammy and Chad believed in the same religion and that they both, did the darks and the lights of people, the ranking systems. They were both fully involved and invested in that way of thinking, and that this was not like just some new fad cult that Chad had created. And I just think it's really interesting that they're still defending him after so much has come out. You would think the kids being found in the backyard would have been enough, but
Yeah.
guess
And
not.
what my understanding for it was is they weren't defending him on that. It was the one of their mom, like him killing their mom, if I understood it, their testimonies.
Yeah.
Again, because
Yeah.
I only watched part of it.
Yeah. Exactly. It
And
was for Tammy's murder.
yeah. And my only thought is that might just be a survival instinct for them of like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you killed these other
It's too
people,
awful.
but right, like it's that idea that because she did have pre-existing condition. Like it wasn't like she was like this healthy bodied person with never having a history before of anything. So I think it might partially just be like it's too hard to know that your dad already did these terrible things, that he's going to prison forever. You don't have any parents anymore. Your stepmom's effing crazy. I think it would be too much to also lose your dad fully. You know? I don't know.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. Maybe it's just a bridge too far and they just can't mentally go there. It's too upsetting. But I think to come and speak on his behalf is, I mean, they may truly believe it though, that her death was natural causes.
I don't think even if I did even if I wanted to believe it, I don't think I could go up on stand and be like, no, he'll murder those people, but not this person. Like, I don't think I could do it. Like, publicly.
She was really sick. Yeah, it's like she was tired. That's not, you're not just dead.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah, I'm tired a lot too. But I still think it would be pretty suspicious if I died in my sleep tonight. Like, I still think that it is worth looking into.
Right. But at this point,
pretty tired.
There's a lot of evidence that you can't just X. And that's what I think is tough. Yeah, no, exactly. That is an interesting one. I do feel bad for them though. Like, it's just,
me too.
Those poor kids, because now they have to live with it all.
Yeah.
Like, Lori's kids is awful
they're
too.
Victims of this too.
Yeah, like, it's indirectly. Yeah, the indirect victims of what already happened, and it is sad.
There's so many indirect victims because it's Charles's kids, it's Charles' extended family, it's Chad's kids, Chad's extended family, Tammy's extended family, JJ and Tylee and their extended families, and then Lori herself and her extended family. It's they've hurt so many people.
Yeah. Well, that was everything I had for the couple overall.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Me too.
For Lori?
I do not. I think that she's right where she needs to be.
I agree.
I think that's all we got. And I'm ready to not talk about her again.
I'm going to go watch the chicken chili enchiladas one more time and then never talk about her again.
Yeah, that one is pretty good. I do recommend looking that up on YouTube or TikTok. Alrighty. Well, we'll pick up back here next week with our next mother.
Until next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.